Okay, so imagine a bed made up of bubbles. And you would have a container filled with bubble solution, and every night you could blow bubbles that would magically assemble into a bed. And each morning you could collect all the bubbles and they would condense back into their solution. No need to make your bed and ample room to play during the day. In my opinion, it could definitely work, but unfortunately, the laws of physics get in the way. This is just one example of the random product ideas I came up with as a child. I had a notebook full of these ideas, complete with drawn-out diagrams and fully fledged business plans. To be completely transparent, they weren't very good. However, those ideas that once came so easily now started to fizzle out. Even when I did come up with something, my brain would be riddled with a myriad of outcomes in which something didn't work out. So this created this sense of paralysis of action. Despite this, because of my love for business, I still choose to find these products and focus my energies into them. However, that leads to the ultimate question. How do you create something in a world where it feels like everything has already been made? Short answer, you find something that works and you make a change to it. I believe that when people are introduced to the world of business, there is a keen emphasis placed on the learning of conventions, the way that things work, the way that things have worked out in the past. But little emphasis is placed on the new, the work that happens outside of these conventions. Somewhere in the pages and pages of learning about jargon, we lose sight of the driving force behind business and innovation itself, namely deviation. Going back to my story from the start of this talk, I'd like to discuss why exactly it became hard for me to come up with these ideas. I believe that it came with this habit of judging an idea before it had even been finalized. So basically the complete opposite of trust the process. Now, what if we considered this from a cognitive perspective? There have been several notable studies that have covered the decline in creativity within children as they age. One of these studies was conducted by George Land and Beth Jarman in 1968. What they did was they tested a group of children aged 3 to 5 years old who were around, I think there was 1,600 children. And this was a longitudinal study, so they retested the same children at 10 and 15 years of age. And the results are quite interesting. So at the age of 5, 98% of children tested at the genius level. By the age of 10, this percentage went down to 30%. By the age of 15, it was now 12%. And when they tested adults with an average age of 31, only 2% of people tested at the genius level. These studies suggest that creativity as measured by these tests tends to decline significantly as we age. And there are various factors that might influence this, things like educational practices and even this growing need that as we grow older, we have to conform to societal norms. With unfiltered curiosity and imagination. They prioritize simplicity and intuitiveness. They appreciate things that are easy to use and understand. Taking their opinions into mind when it comes to product design can be quite beneficial. Okay, so now that we understand why exactly it is important to implement, this childlike imagination into our ideas, how does this play out in the real world? Because I'm sure that a majority of us sitting here don't want to come up with a bubble bed, because in the real world, that's a one-way ticket to a personal injury lawsuit. Okay, so this is a system that I came up with a couple years ago. What it does is it helps us harness that childlike novelty seeking while applying numbers to it, so it helps us look at things in a more rationalized sense. And my personal opinion is that when we talk about things purely conceptually, they tend to get a bit convoluted. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through this framework with a mock product right on stage with you guys. Let's get started. So we have the problem. What problem are we solving? So a problem that I believe a lot of people have is a screen time that is higher than they'd like to admit and a habit of procrastination. Now we can understand that these habits feed onto each other because a lot of people are procrastinating because their attention is taken up by their devices. And a lot of people are aware that they have this problem and are looking for solutions to fix it. So for this, I give this a 9 out of 10. Then we have market analysis. What already exists? Because obviously we don't want to make something that's already there. So Many to-do list apps and phone screen timers already exist. But the thing is, they're simply ineffective for a majority of people because, with a to-do list, it's very easy to just move tasks on to the next day. And with a phone timer, you can override them with just one click. So for this, I'm going to give it a score of an 8 because things do exist, but they aren't working for a lot of people. Then we have value proposition. What can we offer? What this product would offer is it would provide people with a solution where they can prioritize their tasks and then have access to their applications. I give that a 9 as well because it's pretty intuitive. We're giving people their time back. Customer experience. Let's say I'm a customer. Every morning I would log into the account. I would create a list of apps that I would rather not use and a list of tasks that I'd like to complete. Throughout the day, all of the apps would be locked off until I check off my tasks, and then it would be fine. And then I would have easy access to previously restricted applications. This is pretty easy to use and quite intuitive, so I'd give it another 9. Resource analysis. What do you already have that can help you make this? Like, do you have a friend who knows how to code? I take IB Computer Science, so I have 10 friends who know how to code. But the score for this is still a 5 because while coding is important, it's not all you need. Business model. Are people willing to pay for something like this? Is this valuable enough to people that they would pay for it? Now, time is money is quite a common saying, and that's why I believe that people value their time and enough to pay for it. However, it can be a bit tricky to get people to pay for digital products, so I would give this a score of another 8. And then we have the most important metric on here, and that is what my dad thinks about the project, because he is my mentor when it comes to business and everything to do with it. So, Dad, what's the score for this one? And he has to say 10 because I'm his daughter. And so the project timeline, it's not really a judged metric, but the thing about it is it does help to give yourself some dates and put things into perspective. And now we have to do the math bit, which is fine. But before I do that, there are certain rules to using the system that I would like to cover with you guys. There's rule number 1, which is that you must put your ideas down under the different headings as you're thinking of them. Maybe even try voice notes and then transcribing them. Rule number 2, assign a score out of 10 for every single section other than project timeline. And then rule number 3, when you're calculating your overall satisfaction score, what you're going to do is you're going to take the current score divided by the total score, multiply by 100, which is a very complicated way of explaining, just turn it into a percentage. And then rule number 4, the most important one, is that if it's over an 80%, that means that this is a viable idea that you should complete to its fullest ability. And let's see the math. So the idea score for this is a 58 out of 70, which is an 82.9. And last time I checked, that is above 80. So that would mean that this is a viable idea. Okay, now that we've covered all of this, what can you take away from this talk? So, number 1. Imagine like a child, rationalize like an adult. Let your imagination run absolutely free. Don't judge your ideas just yet. Number 2, come up with a bad idea first. I believe that we often get caught up in coming up with the right idea right away, and those eureka moments, they do happen, but we understand that they're quite infrequent, so come up with a bad idea first. And number 3, this might be a slight unpopular opinion, but bad ideas definitely do exist. But the thing about bad ideas is that with a little bit of deviation, we can transform them to exactly what we need. More than anything, I'd like to say this. Ideas that are different are the only ideas with the power to change the world as we know it. Thank you.